Could you just answer? Did Donald Trump win? Yes or no?
Yes.
He did win.
Yep.
So will you concede? Will you concede? If your opponent gets more votes, will you concede?
I really feel bad for you, man.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. This was a tragic hurricane. This was maybe the worst hurricane we've ever had. And he's got no money. And we said, what happened to all the money? They were given billions for this. He spent it on illegal migrants coming into the country.
It's
just some of the lies.
It's just all lies.
With major implications coming from former President Trump and his Republican Party. Nobody will say it's a lie.
People in his party and most people that he talks to give him a safe space and bubble wrap him. So
now a new book examines how those lies are formed and spread. Well, we know how they're formed. They come out of Donald Trump's mouth. Beyond the big lie, the epidemic of political lying and why Republicans do it more, and how it could burn down our democracy, draws on interviews with politicians and experts in misinformation and analyze the rise of political lying. Joining us now, the book's author and founder of the fact-checking site PolitiFact, Bill Adair. He's also a professor of journalism and public policy at Duke University.
Bill and I go back a very long way. You did a very long profile of me when I was in Congress and tried to make a teetotaling right-wing congressman look cool. You did a pretty good job, Bill.
You have a good memory, Joe.
Yeah. Well, so, I also have a good memory the first time you started PolitiFact. It was that was like a new thing. That is a fascinating thing, fact-checking. And then we saw the Washington Post try to keep up with Donald Trump over his 4 years, and it was just absolutely dizzying. But you look at Glenn Youngkin yesterday with Jake Tapper. You look at the vice presidential candidate saying Donald Trump won the election in 2020. It's lies of omission, lies of commission. But it's just a flurry of lies. And I do wonder if you get to a point where, for one party, the truth just doesn't matter at all. And we know politicians on both sides will skirt the truth, sometimes lie, sometimes put things in, sometimes exaggerate. But here you have one party and one candidate lying so much. It really is hard to keep up with it. How does democracy survive? How does fair and open debate survive in this sort of Orwellian environment on the right?
Well, it's scary, Joe, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, is to explore that. If you think about 15 years ago when I used to come on this show and talk about PolitiFact, it would be a question of is it a mostly false? Is it a half true? And now it's just pants on fire, pants on fire. Things have really changed. And so what I tried to do with the book is to explore the why. Why do politicians lie? And how do they lie? And what is the partisan pattern? And one of the things that I admit in the book is that as a fact checker, that I sort of hid the pattern of lying, and I begin with a scene of me on C-SPAN when a caller calls in and says, which party lies more? And I lie and I say, well, we don't keep score. Well, I knew, this was 2012, I knew even then that Republicans lied more. And so what I do with this book is explore that, why that's the case, but also more broadly, why all politicians lie.
In your career, Bill, we were talking in the break about the evolution sort of lying, if you want to put it that way. But a lie, let's take, for example, the Springfield, Ohio lie, that Haitian immigrants here legally are eating cats and dogs, which the Republican governor, the mayor, everybody else in the town said was patently false. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that would have lived in some dark corner of the internet. Your uncle might have sent you that, hey, did you see this, in an email that was in all caps and different colors and fonts with what the email that he wrote. But now you have the former president of the United States, the man who wants to be president again, elevating those lies to a presidential debate. So how did we get to that point where the conspiracy theories that were fringe before now are right at the center of the argument of the Republican Party?
So I think there are a few things that have changed. One is, I think the party has decided in many ways that lying pays off. And one of the things I explore in the book is why do politicians lie? It's a calculation. I'm going to gain more from this lie than I'm going to lose. It's almost like points. So in Trump's case, of course, he just lies shamelessly. Joe was saying the Washington Post counted all these lies over the years. But there's also an ecosystem that not only provides an echo chamber, but profits from these lies. We saw in the Dominion case that Fox needed to play along with the big lie about the 2020 election to remain competitive. And so it's different. It's not just that they're not challenging the lies, it's that they are echoing them.
Yep. I go back and I look at my own family. I look at my own friends. I was on the phone yesterday trying to figure out, when did this start? When did this start with the people I know, the people I love, that they started watching programs and would start calling me up with the most bizarre and wild rumors? And got to say, it started after Barack Obama got elected and Glenn Beck started his 5 o'clock show. And I've said this on the show in real time. I'll say it now. And they would call me, after his show every night. My mom and other, her friends who, again, had master's degrees, were getting up there in years, but were brilliant, loved listening to both sides, very, very conservative. But, liked Keith Olbermann's show early on because it was witty. The writing was witty. That sort of thing, even though they probably never voted for a Democrat since my mom sneaked into the booth and voted for JFK instead of Nixon. But I do remember in 2009 something changing. And they would call and go, oh, my God, Sharia law. Joey, you've got to talk tomorrow. They're going to enact Sharia law in Oklahoma. No, they're not. No, Barack Obama is a Muslim, and I heard it on, and every day I would have to deprogram them for about 20 minutes saying the Muslims aren't taking over the country. Barack Obama is not a, quote, black man who hates all white people, which they also heard on that program. You're not going to have Sharia law in Pensacola, Florida. But it was a daily occurrence. And I noticed at that point just everything starting to pick up and people on the radio starting to echo that. And suddenly, it was all about whipping people into a total frenzy, lying all the time and lying the big lie repeatedly. And that's the first time I had trouble having conversations with my parents about just the truth. Like, no, Sharia law is not coming to Oklahoma. You're cool. Let's talk about the Braves.
So I think, you identify a really important moment, Joe, and that is that point when people became connected. And that was, in many ways, such a profound, powerful time in the sort of 2005, 2000 to 2010 timeframe. And there was a moment when a lot of us were optimistic about what the internet would do. But it was also the time when our Uncle Bob was sending everyone in his address book those emails that said Barack Obama was a Muslim. And so, yes, we were connected, but we were connected now with misinformation. And that was, I think, a beginning of the downturn.
And, John, in that moment, let's not forget Donald Trump steps in with the birther lie. The seed, the ground has been softened that maybe Barack Obama's Muslim, maybe he's not American. Donald Trump effectively begins his political career with that lie.
Yeah, that's what it started. It came at a moment where not only was he getting airplay on Fox News, but some of these other smaller cable channels were starting to exist. And I wanted you to go one step further, because we live now, sure, cable, Fox News, still a big player, but it's more than that. It's TikTok. It's all these, it's the venues have changed where there is no gatekeeping. There's no fact checking whatsoever. It can just, and we've seen Twitter, X, morph into, at times, what feels like a wing of the Trump campaign. It's just that much easier for these lies to spread because of these venues.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, we've seen it in North Carolina, where I live, with the response to Hurricane Helene, that it's just, it is the great uniter that spreads misinformation, whether it's X or Facebook, and now it's resulting in threats against disaster workers. It's really troubling.
All right, the new book,
On that
Beyond
happy
the Big Lie.
Bill,
I'm glad you wrote it.
All before 7 a.m. Thanks, Bill.
It's going to be part of the historical record. The epidemic of political lying, why Republicans do it, and how it could burn down our democracy. It's on sale now. Bill Adair, thank you very, very much.